Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.
I'm Al Bledsoe, Veterans of Foreign War, Post 1108.
I'm Ron Chappell, Chaplain at Vietnam Veterans Post 777 here in Richmond. Welcome to Proudly We Serve. Our guest today is Sheriff Randy Retter. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's certainly my pleasure to be here today.
Well, we're glad to have you.
We appreciate you, and we want to thank you today for your service and what you do. And it's a big help in our community, and we're going to get started just right away. And just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing and things like that.
Well, recently elected the sheriff of Wayne County, and it's again truly my pleasure to serve as your sheriff. The veteran of law enforcement for 31 years. Started out at Randolph County Sheriff's Department, went to work for a small police agency in Randolph County, and then ultimately came here to Wayne County 23 years ago, which has really been it's my family's home, and it's my home, and I'm certainly glad to serve the community here. I've done a number of different things with our department along the way, and served in a number of supervisory and administrative capacities as well, and now again proudly serving as your sheriff.
Yes, we're glad to. I want you to know it was my vote that got you. That one vote.
Well, he's disclosing his political.
I certainly want to thank you for that.
So what's it like, you know, you had a good leader in Jeff, and what's it like to take over? Are the people responding the way they should, and how's all that going?
It's going really well. You know, one of my goals, personal goals, was to make a smooth transition of leadership. Sure. And I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work with Sheriff Kappa for several months coming into my administration to make that happen. And you know, I've gained a tremendous amount of support from not only the people that work for me, but the community, and it's just everybody coming together has made this leadership transition very smooth.
Yeah, I think it helps that you kind of grew up in that environment.
You bet.
You were nurtured and formed in that environment.
Yes. Yeah, started out as a patrolman and worked my way all the way up through the ranks.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
We had RPD's chief on last month.
Chief Branham.
Yes, and he had shared with us the vision of, you know, we all talk constantly when we have meetings about the drug issues that we have in the county. How does Wayne County separate from RPD? Is that a joint task force, if you will? Is all of that work together with everybody?
Yeah, we're all out here trying to fight this issue together, and there's no separation there. We're currently in a joint task force to deal with the drug issues here in Wayne County, and you know, we're currently active a part of that. You know, I think it's very important. This is a large community with a large problem. And you know, it's going to take all of us together, not only just from the law enforcement, from the community as well, to join together to help solve this problem.
Statistically, how do we look compared to other counties?
Well, you know, sadly, and I've mentioned in several other interviews, you know, we continue to rank among the highest counties in the state for not only things like overdoses, but even the transmission of communicable diseases that are commonly found with people that share needles and other types of activities associated with drug use.
Is the Narcan business that the police officers use, are we overplaying that too much, or should we just say enough's enough, or is it just something we have to do?
Well, I think you know, it's not our position as law enforcement to determine whether somebody should live or die. You know, if you're involved in a motor vehicle accident or if you're having a heart attack or other medical issue, we as law enforcement, as first responders, are always going to be there to try to save that life. And you know, if somebody is suffering from you know, an overdose, regardless of whether it's intentional or accidental, then we're going to treat that as any other kind of an accident or trauma, and we're going to try to save that life. And sadly, and quite often, you know, our officers become exposed to some of these drugs, and they receive an accidental overdose, and we have to provide the Narcan to officers or other first responders.
That is absolutely amazing to me.
I just read an article yesterday regarding the Narcan, and they found that it has an adverse effect or conflicting effect if the person's taking this other medication that I can't pronounce the name, starts with an X.
Xanax?
No, not Xanax. It's Exla something Onia, something like that. I can't think of the name of it, but at any rate, they found that if a person is on that particular med and they're administered with Narcan, that it could result in death.
Oh,
So that's a difficult
Very
situation, and what they're saying is that if, for example, law enforcement responds to a situation like that, that they're recommending that EMS be called immediately, you know, to the situation.
and they always are. It's a matter of our routine that if somebody's suffering from an overdose of, you know, of a known or an unknown substance, EMS is always going to be called. We respond because there are many times that situations can become violent as they try to bring those people back around or help treat them, or you know, there may be other illegal activities you know, going on or associated with those. And but you know, the more important thing is that we're mobile. You know, we're always out in the area, and sometimes we can respond quicker than an ambulance service can.
Right.
How do you determine if you're out, your men are out on patrol or whatever, how do you determine, I got to stop that guy, there's something not right there? How do you make those decisions? Is it just something you
I
do?
don't want to give away the secrets now.
Well, no, I mean, in a roundabout way. I mean, I wouldn't want to know everything, but I'm just curious as how do they decide that?
Well, all traffic stops have to come, you know, with either reasonable suspicion that a crime is occurring or for probable cause of some sort, whether that be from a traffic infraction or if, you know, we're able to identify that individual as someone that's wanted, or, you know, there's a number of reasons that we may have been able to affect a traffic stop.
These guys that are out on 70, sometimes you just see them just patrolling, and then all of a sudden, I went to Dayton the other day and came back. They were out on patrol. I don't know what they were doing, but then they had somebody stopped, and they had 2 or 3 officers there. So something was going on, and you could see that they were getting ready to search the vehicle or something. It always amazed me how they can just determine by watching and all that stuff of who to stop, and it seemed like it's
Good training.
Yeah, it's rewarding in some ways, because if those guys are carrying all these drugs and stuff, especially some of this the fentanyl type stuff, you know, that everybody talks about, that can get really dangerous.
Sheriff, how are you doing in terms of manpower, resource for manpower? You know,
Currently, we are 2 people short. We have 2 openings in our police division, if you will, for our patrol staff. We have 2 openings. We just did, for one of those openings, gave a conditional offer of employment, and preparing to give another conditional offer of employment to fill that other spot. Our jail, on the other hand, we have 9 openings in our jail, and which is a significant portion. It's getting close to 20% of our staffing there, and you know, it's, in my opinion, is something critical.
is it the same requirement for either of those positions?
No, actually, it's not. For our patrol division, we have a number of requirements, including having a minimum of 2 years of military service. We're very proud that one of the requirements to come to work for us is having 2 years of military service. And the other equivalents for that minimum requirement would be 3 years of college. So you'd actually, have less military service than you would college. I'm sorry, law enforcement experience. 2 years of college, 3 years of law enforcement experience, or 3 years in jail experience.
Okay.
So we're very proud that
That's
we're able to offer
experience
that.
on the serving side, not experience on the.
That's right, and really, if you think about it, 2 years in the military, look how much life experience that you actually
man.
get in that
Yeah.
time. So we feel like somebody that's got a couple of years of military experience.
Sure.
They've got that life experience. They've
Yeah.
got
Discipline.
that structure, that discipline. Those are all of the traits that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Well, it's the dealership. I mean, that goes without saying. Military people, especially the young ones just getting out, they are so well structured, and everything is yes sir, no sir. Unfortunately, I think some of them stray there a little bit, but generally, you can take a young man that's been in military for a couple of years, and under the right conditions, you can really make a good employee out of that person. Yeah.
I like wearing my hat when I go to the jail. When I walk in, the guys say, "How you doing, sir?" All right. Don't call me sir. I work for a living. Okay.
Yeah.
On the crime side, do you find any particular differences or uniqueness with regards to people who have had military experience, veterans, especially those maybe who have served in combat situations?
Well, we recognize that those that have served in combat have been exposed to things that most people would probably never see or never have to deal with. So along with that, that brings a kind of a unique set of circumstances, and we often hear the term post-traumatic stress or the PTSD that a lot of people refer to. Some of those things we've experienced with people that are in a crisis state that. And I'm giving you kind of an extreme example.
Yeah.
This is not something that happens every day, but we do find that sometimes we have to respond to those that are in crisis, those that have been exposed to some of the horrors of war and their military experience. So. But really, all in all, just like law enforcement, those folks like yourselves that have served in the military, you're a slice of the American pie, and so not really that much difference in the grand scheme of things. But there are some that are dealing with some things that some exposures that a lot of people wouldn't have.
Is there any special training for the folks to be able to identify and deal with those situations? Or?
Yeah, actually, there are a few different types of trainings. There's one in specific that deals with the folks that are in the military or have been in the military that are dealing with post-traumatic stress. And one of my goals is to be able to, at least within my first term, is to have all of my department trained to be able to handle those situations. We're also working toward getting our people back into the critical incident team or CIT training. That is knowing how to recognize and how to deal with people that are having a crisis, on a psychological level. And then we're currently exploring partnering with the local CISM or critical incident stress management team. And that's also to help those not only that have served, but those are in law enforcement to deal with some of the trauma that we deal with and see, routinely.
Right.
Do we have a veterans court in Wayne County yet? Did somebody say that we were going to try to
There was
get a
some talk
veterans
about
court
that.
that was specifically designed for veterans, that if they have an incident or whatever, that they can go to that court? And
Not that I'm aware of, but
Delaware County has one, and I thought
very
maybe
good.
I thought maybe we would join that where because Wayne County is blessed with a lot of veterans.
you bet.
And so we have
Yes.
all walks of life in this county. So, I mean, not all of us are straight and narrow like I am. So, that wasn't a joke.
I'm just laughing.
I know.
I'm just laughing. Okay.
So when you hire a person and they first come to you and you say, well, okay, we can do this, or we can go ahead and set the employment down. So then the process begins of they start out in the jail and then they keep working their way up to.
Well, not always.
Not always, okay.
There are times that someone can apply for and come directly to a patrol or a patrolman's division, a police officer's division at one of our patrolmen. So, if they apply for that and they meet the criteria, and again, I'd mentioned 2 years of military service.
Right.
And it's 2 years of military service with an honorable discharge.
Right.
And and a minimum rank of E4 or an equivalent. So
Yeah, if you serve 2 years and you can't, you didn't get E4.
you should be right.
You
right.
should be, yeah,
So, but anyway, if you meet those requirements, then you could come out and be a patrolman without necessarily having to go through our jail as well. However, we currently, as we accept applications and they're approved through our processes, if they're on our hiring list, we gladly offer those people that have applied for our patrol division to come to work for us, and work in our jail until that position opens up, and then we can move them into that position.
That's what I was trying to get to, the differences in the requirements. So you don't have to
Sure.
have the 2 years of college to work in the jail?
3
That's
years
correct.
of college. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 2 years of college or an associate's degree, 2 years of military, 3 years of law enforcement, or 3 years in our jail. But to work in to start in our jail as a corrections officer, civilian corrections officer, you do not have.
Okay.
So-
So what's the requirements for that?
Just 21 years of age, high school diploma or GED.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously a good criminal
Good
history.
question. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, great. Yes, great. So are there any incentives for recruiting veterans?
We're currently looking at restructuring our hiring process, and one of the possibilities that we're looking at is to be able to give preference to veterans. So not just make that a requirement to come work for us, but to give preference in some fashion. So we'd be proud to be able to offer that to our community, and like you said, we're blessed with many veterans in our community,
yes,
and
we are.
we would love to have them come aboard, because the life experience that they bring to us is certainly beneficial, not only to our department but to our community.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that.
I think a main important question, if I were interested in doing it, is what's the pay?
Oh yeah, pay.
That's
So
kind of important.
absolutely.
That's part of it.
Our, in addition to all the benefits that we have, health care and retirement plan and life insurance and other things, the pay starts out at a salary of $42,000 a year for our patrolmen.
Oh, that ain't bad.
It's not bad, when you compare it to some other jobs in the professional field. But when you compare that to others, we're fringing on that competitive level.
Yeah, but the cost of living here is.
That's right.
Yeah.
Cost of living here is reasonable.
Yeah, I remember back when Bill Shake was chief, and he and I were attempting to increase the percentage of minorities on the force, and he had worked with a recruiting company in Cincinnati, and they had got a list of about 30, 35 folk. And so we were setting up this big reception, and we were going to take them around town and all that, and none of them showed up. And we found out the reason was we were still paying in the 20s. And Dayton, Cincinnati, Detroit, and all that were paying up in the high 30s.
And I've got to give hats off to our council. They're doing everything they can to manage within the their budgets, and they're working toward trying to increase those salary ranges and the benefits that we have, and trying to maintain that within the arena that we have to work within. So again, hats off to them for what they're trying to do for us, and they're certainly trying to keep us competitive with everyone else around.
How are we looking in terms of looking reflective of our community in terms of race, ethnicity? I know you got females and on staff, and I think you got a few blacks down there.
Sure. Yeah, we sure do. And I remember earlier in the program we mentioned talking about an individual we gave a conditional offer of employment to.
Right.
He's a black gentleman out of Indianapolis that's going to come to work for us, and couldn't be any happier that we have that opportunity. But he's a very intelligent individual, and tickled to death to have him to come to work for us.
Yeah, and I try to encourage our young minority folks to seek employment in law enforcement. People complain that we don't see people, Hispanics and African Americans, in law enforcement. Well, we've got to encourage and quit being negative and look at it on the positive side in terms of the desire to see more representation, in that area. So that's my charge to the community, and not just African Americans or blacks encouraging blacks, or Hispanics encouraging Hispanics. Other folks, as a majority, some people that would do well in law enforcement, and you maybe should encourage them to be a part of it as well.
I will mention on that topic, I'm very proud to be working currently with the local chapter of NAACP and a Dory project.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
So this is all about the recruitment of people, the African American and minority groups, into law enforcement.
That's right.
And it provides so much opportunity for them by helping them. The focus of this is to provide that opportunity to help them accomplish the education or the experience that they need in order to have a successful profession or professional career in law enforcement.
Well, I've always thought of it as one. I mean, whether you're black or white or whatever.
Absolutely.
I mean, that has, if you've got the character, I mean, it's what your character is and how you stack up with all that stuff, because sometimes we hire people and it's a mistake, and it's just better off to cut it. And maybe
no matter
not,
what color.
Well, don't make, because it's not a matter of that. To me, that just you have to earn the respect, though.
Yeah, but
at the same time.
We have to acknowledge our history, the history that we've had to deal with over the years. All of us, that we've had to. And even if your heart is right, you still have to deal with some of the institutional things that have been impediments for people, to progress. So we need to keep doing what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And certainly I want to lead the way in bridging those gaps, and this opportunity to work in the Dory project is just an outstanding opportunity, and one that I want to take advantage of.
That's great. That's great. Because we had a lot of minority veterans out there too.
You bet.
Well, yeah, I think that, that's, I don't know, that's, to me, it just, that's okay, but it just doesn't have anything to do. I mean, if you've got the character and you've got the credentials, that's, what he's saying. I mean, you've got to have a pretty clean slate, and I agree with all that. I don't think it makes any difference what you are.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
Yeah. So, Sheriff, if there was, what's the most important thing that you'd like to convey to our audience? Now, this program is principally for and about veterans, so what would be something that you'd want to emphasize to that group of folks?
Well, apply at the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. Seriously, you know, if you've had a successful military career and left with an honorable discharge, you know, we really would like to give them an opportunity to come and work for us. But you know, what I want to convey is my gratitude for what you and the veterans of our community have done, you know, and how they've served us.
Right.
You know, it's one thing for me and the other law enforcement folk here in Wayne County to come out and serve our community locally, but to serve in the capacity that you have as a veteran is certainly something that's very honorable, and you know, I want to convey my thank you or my thanks for doing something like that.
Thanks.
Well, I think we
Incredible.
have to be realistic with law enforcement. You guys have a tough job,
Yeah, you do.
very tough job, and you just see all the time on television of different incidents and stuff like that. That's a little scary. You know? We've been fortunate probably in our community, but at the same time, anything's possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
I tell people all the time, I say, you know, I went to Nam in 65, I went to Laos in 69, but you guys are in it 24 and 7, you know. And so I respect you for the work that you do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where you try to always be prepared for the worst, but wish for the best.
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And to take the time to be on our program.
Yeah. Busy man.
Is a busy guy like you to
Absolutely,
spend
my
the time
pleasure.
with a
Speaking of which,
program
the
that's for
program that's
veterans
coming
only.
to an end right now because we only got 30
Why are
seconds.
you
So we
cutting
gotta, we gotta
Okay,
go,
you better
man.
move, buddy. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for watching today.
Yeah, Sheriff, thank you so much for taking the
Thanks
time
for
to come
coming.
out and be
Truly
with
my
us today.
pleasure.
And folks, we thank you for watching Proudly We Serve. Bye-bye.
See you next time.
Cronin Toyota and Cronin Nissan are honored to partner with Proudly We Served, as well as the continued support of our local active and retired military veterans across eastern Indiana.